Have you ever met someone, shook their hand, heard their name, and then literally 10 seconds later it is completely gone? You remember exactly what they were wearing. You remember their smile. You remember the color of their eyes. But their name? Blank. Total blank. And the worst part, you feel embarrassed about it. You think something is wrong with you. You start avoiding that person because you know you'll have to say their name. And you just cannot. But here's the thing, and this is what nobody is talking about. You are not forgetful. Your brain is actually working exactly the way it was designed to. Welcome back to Mind Awareness Hub. Today we are going into the deep psychology behind one of the most common and most misunderstood things that happens to people every single day. Why do we remember faces so easily, but names just disappear? The answer goes far deeper than just bad memories. It touches on how your brain evolved over thousands of years, how your attention system works, and what your forgetting pattern actually reveals about your personality and intelligence. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at your own memory the same way again. The brain's favorite language. Your brain did not evolve in a world of words. It evolved in a world of images. Think about your ancient ancestors. They did not need to remember someone's name to survive, but they absolutely needed to remember what a predator looked like. They needed to remember which face in the tribe was a friend and which was an enemy. They needed to recognize a familiar face from 50 feet away. So, over thousands of years, your brain became incredibly, powerfully specialized at processing faces. Neuroscientists have actually found a specific region in your brain called the fusiform face area, whose only job is to recognize and store faces. Names, on the other hand, names are completely abstract. The name Ahmed or Sarah or James means nothing on its own. It carries no image, no color, no emotion, no smell, no story. It is just a sound, and your brain, quite simply, is not wired to hold onto random sounds. This is not a flaw. This is an ancient, brilliant design, just not designed for modern-day networking events. Now let's get a little deeper into the actual science, because this is where it gets really fascinating. Psychologists call this problem the Baker paradox. Here's how it works. In a famous experiment, researchers showed to groups of people the same photograph of a man. They told the first group this man's last name is Baker. They told the second group this man is a baker. He bakes bread for a living. A few days later, both groups were shown the photo again and asked what they remembered. The people who were told his job was baker remembered it easily. The people who were told his name was Baker, most of them had completely forgotten. Same word, same sound, completely different results. Why? Because when you hear the word baker as a job, your brain immediately connects it to a whole network of meaning. You picture flour. You picture an oven. You picture the smell of fresh bread. Maybe you picture someone you know who bakes. The word hooks into dozens of existing memories. But when is baker just a name? It connects to nothing. It floats in your mind like a balloon with no string, and eventually, it just drifts away. This is called elaborative encoding. Your memory does not work like a recorder that just saves what it hears. It works like a web of new information that only sticks when it connects to something that already exists. Names, by their nature, are almost impossible to connect to existing webs of meaning. Now, here's the second reason names disappear, and this one is about when you actually hear a name. Think about the moment you are introduced to someone new. What's happening in your brain at that exact second? You are analyzing their face. You are evaluating their body language. You're deciding if they seem friendly or distant. You're thinking about what you are going to say next. You're managing your own nervousness or excitement. In other words, your attention is completely full. And the name? It comes in right at the most cognitively crowded moment possible. Your brain simply doesn't have the bandwidth to process and store it properly. The name enters and immediately gets pushed out by everything else happening at the same time. Psychologists call this attentional overload, and it is why even very intelligent, very sharp people forget names constantly. In fact, and this is the part people find surprising, research actually suggests that people who are highly empathetic and socially aware are more likely to forget names, not less, because they are paying so much attention to reading the person in front of them, their emotions, their energy, their expressions, that the name just gets sacrificed. So if you always forget names, you might actually be too socially present, too emotionally tuned in. Not a flaw, an overflow. And there's one more layer to this generation effect. Studies show that information we generate ourselves is remembered far better than information we receive passively. When you hear someone say my name is Ali, you are passive. You received it. Your brain didn't work for it. But if you had to figure out someone's name through context, reading a nameplate, guessing from a mutual friend, working for it in some way, your brain would encode it dramatically better. The problem is, in real social situations, we always receive names. Nobody makes us work for them, and so they don't stick. Now here's the part of this video that I think will genuinely surprise you, because forgetting names is not random. The way you forget and who you forget actually follows a very specific psychological pattern, and that pattern reveals something real about how your mind works. Let's talk about 3 personality types that forget names most often. Type 1, the deep processor. These are people who think in depth. When they meet someone, they do not just skim the surface. They are already thinking about this person's story, their energy, and what makes them tick. Their brain is running deep analysis in real time. Deep processors are often introverts, creative thinkers, or highly curious individuals. They're the kind of people who leave a conversation thinking that it was fascinating, but then realize they have no idea what the person's name was. For deep processors, the name never stood a chance. The brain was too busy doing something more interesting. Type 2, the anxious socializer. This type is slightly different. They forget names not because they are deeply engaged, but because a part of their brain is focused on managing the social situation. They're monitoring, am I saying the right thing? Do they like me? Is this conversation going well? This low-level anxiety acts like background software running on your phone. It does not crash the whole system, but it quietly drains resources. And one of the first things to go is short-term name storage. For anxious socializers, the solution is not to try harder to remember names. It is to feel safer in social situations, because when the anxiety goes down, the cognitive bandwidth for names goes up automatically. Type 3, the present moment person. This type is actually the most psychologically healthy of the 3, and yet they forget names the most frequently. These are people who are fully in the moment. They are not thinking about the past. They are not managing the future. They are just completely, totally present with whoever is in front of them. And in that state of total presence, details like names which require a slightly future-oriented thought simply do not register. Mindfulness practitioners actually report this frequently. The more present they become, the worse their name recall gets, because remembering something for the future requires a tiny shift away from the present moment. So ironically, being bad at names can be a sign of high mindfulness. Now there's also a darker pattern worth mentioning, because honesty matters on this channel. Sometimes we forget someone's name because, on a subconscious level, we did not find them interesting or important. Research and selective attention shows that our brains naturally prioritize encoding information about people we find attractive, powerful, or emotionally relevant. If someone does not trigger any of those signals, if they feel neutral or unimportant to our unconscious mind, the brain may simply not bother to store their name. This does not make you a bad person. It makes you human. We all do it. But it is worth being honest with yourself about it. Because sometimes when you forget someone's name, the real message is not "I have a bad memory." The real message is, "I was not fully present with this person." And that's actually useful information because it means you can choose to change it. Alright, so now that you understand why this happens, let's talk about what you can actually do about it. Because understanding psychology is powerful, but practical tools make the real difference. I am going to give you 5 techniques that are grounded in actual memory science. Not just repeat their name 3 times. Technique 1, the association bridge. The moment you hear a name, your only job is to build one quick bridge between that name and something visual or emotional. Someone's name is Nadia. Think of someone else you know named Nadia. Or think of the word that sounds like Nadia sounds like radio, so picture this person with a radio. Sounds silly. Works brilliantly. You have just given the name a hook in your existing memory web. The stranger the image, the better it sticks. Your brain loves unusual, vivid associations.